I do believe we're recording. This is Chris Reimer, Vice President of Social Media at Falk Harrison, and Chief Shirtologist at Rizzo Tees. But I am not the story today. We have John Morgan and his book, which I believe you can see here, Brand Against the Machine. John, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm really awesome. I kicked my entire family out of the house so we could have a nice, quiet conversation.
I did as well. Right before we got on, I was literally shoving them out the door and making sure that they'd be gone.
Like the weatherman predicts the weather, I predict there's a 40% chance they will come home and burst into the room here. So we'll have to we'll just have to kind of roll with that. And, so anyway, here's a question: is it John Morgan or John Michael Morgan?
That's a great question. Most people know me as John Morgan, but my parents cursed me with the most popular freaking name on the planet.
Yeah.
I graduated high school with 3 other John Morgans. And crazy enough, one of them was John Michael Morgan. So, it's the stupidest name ever. Like, why they named me the most... Let's just pick the most popular common freaking names ever and give that to our kid.
They weren't thinking about long-tail keywords back then.
And, they were not, no.
You could go the David Meerman Scott way and, get the, add the middle name, and then you're somewhat more of a long-tail keyword.
Right, so. Yeah. So the Michael came in, actually, because... the douchebag that owns JohnMorgan.com said that he would sell it to me for $50,000. And out of just frustration and hating him, I was like, I don't need it. So I just, John Michael Morgan was available, so I was like, screw it, that's it. And I do have, some people call me John Michael, some people call me John. A lot of people just call me Morgan. And a lot of people call me really nasty things as well. So, yeah, it is a confusing thing, but, yeah, I don't know.
It's all good. Well, I want to talk a little bit about, first of all, how this book came to exist. I'm wondering, man, I'm kind of looking at your book. I honestly did not get a chance to read the entire book, but I did read through parts of it. It kind of reminds me of the next rework, maybe, as far as...
Well, that's a compliment.
Great ideas that are very easy to access, excellent writing style, but, just... It's like a bunch of rules almost. And you go up to chapter 61 plus, So that's kind of what it reminds me of. Why did you write the book?
Yeah, well, the real answer is because Wiley paid me to.
God bless Wiley.
That was number one. I wrote the book for a few reasons. One is that I get really, really upset with a lot of the people that are just out there in the internet space trying to, preach marketing and business and those things, and everything they're talking about is based on theory. They've never actually owned a real business themselves and never actually tested anything, and that's frustrating to me because I have owned real businesses and have sold businesses, and I've tested this stuff, right? And so I wanted to write a book that put in stuff that wasn't based on theory or hype or something I read. Instead, it was based on stuff that I've actually done myself, so that I know that it works or doesn't work. And the style, I was inspired by rework, when I wrote it, because, we're a blog, people now, right? Like, that's how we're used to reading. And as I'm too short and to the point about stuff. I can't write a chapter that's 20 pages because I'm not that good. I have my thing. Do it or not, that's it. And I wanted to cram in as much strategies as I could, because there's nothing more frustrating for me when I buy a book, because I read a lot of books, and then I read it, and I'm like, there's 1 or 2 ideas to get out of it. That kind of seems like a waste to me. I always get really frustrated and disappointed when I'm excited about reading it, and then I open it up, and it's like, this is nothing.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to read yours, and like I said, I got through parts of it. You were gracious enough to send it to me a week ago. I don't read as many books as you, partially just due to time, and some of it is attention span, though. The greater question being, could I sit down and read a chapter that's 20 pages at this point?
Right.
And you don't have that, so your book is, like I said, I'm halfway through it right now, but I'm going to finish it soon. It was very easy to access with a lot of great information.
Thank you.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, too. How did you hook up with Wiley? Because
that's a good question.
Camera, I've got, let me see, Sam Silverstein, Chris Brogan, David Meerman Scott, David Siteman Garland, Scott Stratton, now you, Ari Kaplan's another one. So some of my favorite authors. They all seem to just gravitate towards Wiley. Why is this?
Yeah, well, Wiley's great. First of all, there's certainly a great team of people who are very supportive, and the one thing I'll be eternally grateful for to Wiley is they did not censor my book at all. They let me write the book that I wanted to write, which was very, very cool. So anytime I'm making fun of someone in the book, or or saying something maybe a little bit controversial or outrageous, they were cool with it. They knew what they were getting into. So, yeah, a little hat tip to them. But the reason Wiley contacted me, my name had been tossed around to them by several authors. Because I'm friends with some of them, some of the people you mentioned. Some of their authors were clients of mine, and I had helped with the launch of their books and those kind of things. So my name had been tossed around a lot. And then someone at Wiley, even though I didn't know it because they never even came up and said hi to me, saw me speak at an event. And when they saw how the audience reacted, they're like, oh, this is really cool. And then they realized, wait a minute, this is that guy that several people keep saying we should contact. So Shannon, my editor at Wiley, sent me an email and said, hey, have you ever thought about writing a book? Let's hop on the phone. And I talked to her for 10 or 15 minutes, and the funny story is I lied to her. And she doesn't know this.
Uh-oh.
But, yeah, who cares now, right?
No one reads my blog. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah, screw it. So she was like, have you thought about writing a book? And I was like, yes. And I was like, I've got the whole thing mapped out, like A to Z. And she was like, oh, cool. Can you email me that, by the end of today? And I was like, no problem. Which, of course, I didn't have crap, right? So I hang up the phone with her, and I told my wife, I was like, the rest of the day, reschedule everything that I have, because I now have to map out this entire book, beginning to end, and send it on. And so that's how it came about.
Oh, that's hilarious. And I want to ask you about the dedication in the book. It touched me a little bit just because, full disclosure, I'm interested in writing a book as well. And I have a wife who has said, yes, you can basically disappear during the times that you need to write. You said to your amazing wife, for seeing something in me years before I saw it myself. Can you tell me and my blog readers what you meant by that?
Yeah, well, I met my wife in high school. So we've been together a long time. And as crazy as this sounds, the moment I saw her, I knew she was the one, right? And that's cheesy and everything, but I just knew. And then the first time we talked on the phone, I told her, I was like, we are going to end up getting married. And she thought I was crazy and a little bit creepy, because typically that's not what you say to a woman. Yeah. But here we are today, which shows you how far I will go to be right, is I will marry the woman and stay married to her, just to prove that I knew what I was talking about. But when I was in high school, and certainly the years after high school, I struggled with depression very seriously and had many scary times, with that. So that was something that confidence was a constant battle to me. And on the days that I was feeling confident, business was great. And on the days that I wasn't, business was horrible. And so I had this, internal struggle with my own confidence and mindset and self-worth and, all those things for many, many years. And she was the one who, even when we were just teenagers, she was like, you're going to be something big. And I don't know what, but you're going to be something big. So instead of her ever getting impatient or frustrated, or any of those things, she literally, she saved my life, literally saved my life, and was more than just the encouraging spouse, in business. She was there in the rough times and the good times, and, she's been to the conferences and stuff I've been to, so she gets business. She owns her own business. So that confidence that she had in me, I would have given up on myself years ago and wouldn't be where I'm at today. So the book was for her. I had to dedicate it to her because she knows more than anybody the long journey, that it's been. And she's the one who believes me when I say crazy things. When I told her 5 years ago, oh, I'm going to be a best-selling author one day. And she doesn't laugh at that. She's like, yeah, you probably will now that you say it. So yeah, I had to dedicate the book to her.
So one last question on kind of the fluffy stuff. Not to say that that's fluff. That's that dedication sounds like it was. That dedication sounds like it's spot on. So ultimately, through everything that you just described, and your previous businesses and your speaking career and all this, what does this book mean to you right now? And just kind of a hint. For culmination of a dream, perhaps, or what do you think?
It's funny because I always thought that I would write a book. Never actively like pursuing it, just thought it would come about. Now that I've written one, I want to write 5. Like I already have book number 2 planned out, and I've like actually started it, and this book just came out. So it certainly lit this like fire in me. One of the things that came from the book that I was not expecting was validation that I did not know that I was looking for or needed, to be honest with you. And that validation came from actually Mitch Joel, who's like a hero of mine.
Okay.
Because Mitch is one of those guys that every time he writes a blog post, I'm like, oh crap, I've been thinking that for weeks, and now he has said it before me. And so Mitch, reads the book, and he sends me, a nice testimonial for the book, and in it he says, your book is the new definition of branding. And I was like, well, geez, if Mitch Joel likes it, I don't care who else likes it. You know what I mean? There's that validation. Yeah. And what was cool about that is when Wiley and I signed the book deal, my editor, Shannon, was like, we would like you to write the book that redefines branding. And I was like, oh, thanks for the pressure. Like, geez, right? And the process of writing the book was chaotic because I had several months to write it, and I procrastinated and did not write a single word at all until my daughter was born on May 4th, and the book was due May 15th.
No.
So, yeah. So I literally spent the first 2 weeks of my daughter's life. I would wake up at 6 a.m. and I would write until 3 a.m., sleep 3 hours, and wake up and do it again, and just hammered the book out that way, which certainly did not make my wife happy. Because I was not involved, I wasn't able to change diapers, and all of those things. But also, I don't know that I could have written the book any other way. Because once I got in that zone, I had a lot to say, and I just needed to fire it out.
So basically, this is like cramming for an overnight exam, like 60 times because you have 60 chapters. Okay.
Yeah. I don't recommend it.
The way, you know what? I don't know if you can say that, though, because, you have to work the way that you work best. And
that's true.
It sounds as though, take no offense, but, less methodical and plotting and more, I am inspired to do this now because I have no other choice. And it's, you kind of squeeze your best work out of that.
Yeah, I knew if I allowed myself, it goes back to the confidence thing we talked about. If I allowed myself time to second guess every word I wrote, the book still wouldn't be finished.
Interesting.
So I had to, I had to sit down. I work good under pressure, first of all. And some people do it, some people don't. I just do. I had to sit down and know it's got to be perfect, and I've got one shot. Yeah. Like, that's just the only way I can work.
And I'm kind of the same. I mean, sometimes I pressure myself to write in a perfect manner. And part of my problem, too, not being able to start a book is just that life's comfortable. I got a great job, love my family, and so something's going to need to light the spark. And hopefully, once I sit down and really start it, then it'll be like you, where you can't stop writing. But
yeah.
So I just want to talk real quick about the beginning of the book, because I think you lead it off brilliantly. You talk about English author Samuel Johnson, where back in 1759, he says, "Advertisements are so numerous they are very negligently perused," and so on and so on. Now, and you say that was 252 years ago, and nothing has changed. And Gary Vaynerchuk talks about, traditional advertising and how it's had a 150-year run. Sounds like 250-year run. Talk to me a little bit about why you led the book off with that and what you mean.
Well, I'm a history nerd, for one thing. Very much a big history nerd. So I wanted to throw in as many little tidbits about history as I could, just for my own geekiness with that. But I wanted to start it off to have that impact, to prove that point of, we all keep hearing, everybody out there will say, oh, everyone sees thousands of marketing messages a day, it's too much, blah, blah, blah. Like, and if I just said that in the book, people would be like, okay, yeah, we've heard that. But to put it in the perspective of, wait a minute, this has been going on now over 250 years, like, that's insane. That is crazy that 250 years ago, the people alive then felt like they had too many messages, and you can only imagine, what they'd kill themselves today. Like,
probably so.
That they couldn't handle it. So I wanted to just set it up to let people know that the way we go about it in business is not right. it's broken, and there's this huge shift that's been happening for several years. And some people are, paying attention to that shift and some aren't. And I point to like social media with this because to me, the future of business is marketing with people and not at them. Rather than sending them this message that's unwanted and unwelcome, let's market with people. Let's get them involved. And so people sometimes look at social media and they think of, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google Plus, those things. It's like, forget that. The reason social media is popular at all is because everyone on the freaking planet wants to connect with people, not at them. So it's like this.
That's our human nature.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I wanted to start the book off that way to really get people to realize, one, this is where we're at currently, and this is why you have to go against this. That's what, in my eyes, the machine is that we're trying to, build a brand against is that, it's like there's a machine just pumping out marketing message after message, and anybody that keeps creating a new business, they fall in line with how it's always been done.
Yeah.
And it's time that we stop doing it the way it's always been done.
Well, speaking of that, in one of the chapters you talk about mind share versus market share. And what we encounter often with our clients is that, market share is what they're aiming for. To a seasoned executive, that would seemingly be the more profitable thing to pay attention to. I'm of a different opinion, and I imagine you are as well.
Yeah, well, I learned this lesson. I ran a real estate business for several years, and one of the things that came out of that was we realized that the average person in their mind can only remember 1 to 3 real estate agents' names. That's mind share. So it doesn't matter how many homes you're selling and how much of the market you feel like you've got. If you're not that first or second, person in their mind when they think we need to sell our house or we need to buy a house, you're out. You're not going to last. And so we get caught up with, market share of thinking, okay, let's put up billboards, let's do TV ads, that traditional corporate branding, that was like so popular for so long. And it's like, that's not what it is. You need to be that person that if someone sits down and says, okay, I need to help, I need to improve my email marketing. Then if you're somebody that teaches people how to do that, you need to be that first person they think of. Not you need to have more ads out there or, something like that. You've got to be, in their head.
Another thing you talk about, interactions and not interruptions are the key to marketing. The first thing I thought of actually is probably not what you're talking about here, but the idea of, like you said, be found when someone is looking for that what you do. So if instead of doing a pay-per-click ad for whatever it is that you do in business, perhaps have a website that contains enough content that when someone sits down and uses Google, which we're still doing these days, that they may land upon your site. So talk a little bit about interactions and not interruptions.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. If someone, let's say they're on Facebook and they see the Facebook ad, but they don't know you, and so they don't like you, they don't trust you. Even if they click on it, you may get a purchase out of them, but they're not connected to you. There's no relationship there, right? Whereas if you post something interesting on Facebook on your own profile, and they're talking to you, and they're liking it, and they're adding to the conversation, you're not interacting with them. And one of the things that when I was writing the book, I looked back and realized that every single new client that I have gotten in the last year and a half, we had communication well before they became a client. Either we were friends or it was something, Twitter, Facebook, those kind of things. There was some kind of interaction there. They frequently commented on the blog or, had seen me speak multiple times. It was, interacting with them rather than them being, oh, hey, John, we just saw your ad, so here's our money. That's not the way people really like to do business, and it's not the way, it's not a good way to do business. Right. Because then it's all about just spending that money. And I think the problem that happens when you are just, throwing money at it is that you have that disconnect that, oh, my clients are actually people. These prospects have like a heartbeat, that we're after. They're not just a number.
Right.
And when you've got all this money on the line, and I'm not saying that spending money on ads and stuff is bad because it can be good. But one of the things that happens mentally is then it's just about, let me get that sale, let me get that sale. Yeah. I don't just want the sale.
Yeah,
I want it over and over.
Well, what I experience sometimes too is, when we talk to people about social media, they express a real lack of interest in even really having that relationship with a customer. They don't want to be friends with those people, or whatever you call a friend these days, whether it be online, offline, or a little bit of both. But they don't have any interest in that. The first thing that always comes to mind with me is that there's some lack of care in there that might not make them the best partner. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. And I'm in business to make money. I would love to tell you that I want to help people and I, want to be friends with them and, cradle them like a baby. No, I want to be filthy rich. I'm not ashamed of that. I do want to help people, and I don't mind being friends with my clients because they're actually all very, very awesome. And so, that's the thing, though, is we get in business and we're just always, we have this like churn 'em and burn 'em method. Get a sale, onto the next one. Get a sale, onto the next one. It's like, wait a minute, I would rather get a sale and build this relationship with them to where now they continue to buy from me for life.
Yeah.
And look at Apple, right? That's what Apple's done, right? Once you buy a Mac, you're not buying a PC ever again. You're always going to continue to buy Mac. Or once you've got an iPhone, you're not going to say, nah, I'm going to go over here and, get the Droid. It's really, not happening really.
Yeah.
Maybe rarely. Once people are kind of in there, they're very, very loyal to it. And that's what kind of company you want to be. And yeah, if you have like zero care and you hate people, you got some problems come your way.
Yeah, you have a different business problem. I think people make a mental separation between certain people. Make a mental separation between that old school Rolodex and their friends on Facebook. As in, over here with a bunch of business cards, this is where I do business, and over here, I'm going to be a completely different person over here because this is Facebook, and here's where we don't do business. And we tell people, you could just be the same person in both places if you want.
Yeah. Well, no, you're exactly right, because people are forgetting that we do business with people. So you're your brand, right? And I tell people all the time, because one of the questions I get the most if ever I talk about social media, somebody will no doubt stand up and say, wait a minute, I've got some pictures on Facebook of me getting drunk with my buddies and all that. Like, should I have a profile, for my real friends and then a profile for business, all this? As an entrepreneur, business owner, we have forfeited our right to use Facebook and Twitter like everyone else. My mom, God bless her, she can play Farmville all day long, right? Like, and knock yourself out because she's not in business and trying to be an entrepreneur and, put herself out there. I am. Right? So that means, again, I'm not going to sit here and just, my brother and I have a very warped sense of humor. And so I told him, I was like, look, those jokes, not on my Facebook wall, dude. Like, let's keep those to email.
Yeah.
Because, it is business. And yeah, and you want to connect with those people. And people are afraid of that. But yeah, what happens is now, because people really feel like they know me, my clients are so cool. Like, I don't mind talking to them. I don't dread it. Like, they're actually cool people to work with. You
use the word afraid, and I think some people would be afraid, but I think some people, they lament the fact that they can't act that way online anymore, And so, I've had people say, well, I'm trying to get a job with the local archdiocese, the Catholic archdiocese. So I'm not going to be able to post pictures, of my dinner at the wine bar. And I said, sure, I guess you won't be able to. Is that a big deal? If that's a deal breaker, you're going to have to get a job somewhere else. It's like people think that they don't want to have to curate themselves online in a different way that they do in real life. And it's like, maybe you should just act the right way in both places. Go to the wine bar, put pictures up, and if that disqualifies you from a certain job, maybe it's not the right job for you.
Right. Yeah, people are afraid of being themselves and repelling, these people. But it's like, for every person that maybe you are repelling, you're attracting people like you.
Yeah.
And you can do business with those people. So again, you don't need everybody. You just need that relationship with that core group.
And that was my next question. In the book, you say being controversial works. And I suppose you just explained it. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, everybody, no one likes being bored. Right? We all like to be entertained, and clearly, if you look at how we live and why the internet is popular and TV shows and movies and just everything, it's all about entertainment. So that's a big signal to us as business owners that we should be at least a little bit entertaining. It's okay to not take ourselves so seriously. And I don't care what industry you're in, you're going to have, something that you feel strongly about that your industry, does that's wrong or does that is stupid or something. And chances are, if you feel that way, there's a lot of people that feel that way. So if you're that person that stands up and says, wait a minute, we don't like this, I'm going to speak out against this, you're going to attract a great group of people who are just as passionate about that as you are.
Okay. Last question. What is wrong with most websites?
That's good. Most, man, that's a good one. That chapter, what I love about it is it's offended people already. Website designers and people have already been pissed off, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, have you read the book? And they're like, no. I'm like, all right, then shut your mouth. What's wrong with most websites? For the average business owner, especially the one who's like, okay, I'll jump into social media. Okay, we'll be online. We'll try to figure this out. Their website's just a fancy brochure. It's like a business card, right? There's no method on it at all to continue that relationship and generate leads. And that's what your website should be. It should generate leads. When you see good websites that are collecting email addresses and have, good offers for that. It's like, okay, these people get it. They're doing it right. Yet, so many people, they just have these websites. It's boring, and it's got more details than you could ever possibly want. There's no reason, to come back to the site more than once. There's no reason to leave your information there. That's what's wrong with most websites, is they're just this static, brochure that no one wants to visit twice.
David Meerman Scott talks about that a lot, where most companies, it's just me. And I think that's where a lot of companies fail, is that, like you said, it's a glorified brochure. I mean, when you hand a brochure out, I'd be shocked if a brochure wasn't 100% about your business and what it is that you sell. On a website, maybe, breathe a little life into it and show people what it's like around the building. These are the things I wouldn't expect to see in a colored brochure, but that on a website, most companies, they think that, they're not properly marketing all of their different product silos and all these things, and it drives me batty,
Yeah, I mean, it's why blogs are popular, because blogs allow us to engage. So if you write a blog post, Chris, because of the way a blog's set up, I can comment on it. I can say, oh, wait a minute, Chris wrote something new. Maybe I should come back, but most people have these websites where it's, it never changes. They haven't changed it in 5 years, and they have no intention of changing it. It's like, man, you're missing the point, and you're not generating leads that way.
John, where can people find you online?
They can, my blog is johnmichaelmorgan.com, and from there you can pretty much find me, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff.
We want to be clear, it's not johnmorgan.com.
Not johnmorgan.com, because that guy's a douchebag. It's johnmichaelmorgan.com.
Do not visit johnmorgan.com.
Right, exactly.
We don't endorse him. So we've got Brand Against the Machine, and I will read this just because it is long. How to build your brand, cut through the marketing noise, and stand out from the competition. John Morgan's awesome new book. I'm honored to have had the chance to interview you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
Take good care.